They found her lying in room 214, neat, clean, and still. A woman who checked in with no past, no future, and no name that could be traced. She called herself Mary Anderson, but that wasn't who she really was. Her death wasn't loud or bloody. It was silent, composed, deliberate. Yet somehow, the silence was more terrifying than any scream. There were no fingerprints, no paper trail, and no relatives, just a body, a note, and a poison so rare it screamed of espionage. This isn't just a mystery. This is a ghost story wrapped in flesh, a real-life riddle that haunts Seattle to this day. And once you hear what happened in that room, you'll never check into a hotel the same way again. October 7th, 1996, a gray sky loomed over Seattle, the kind that feels heavy with secrets. The Hotel Vintage Park, tucked into the heart of downtown, was used to business travelers and quiet tourists. That afternoon, a woman arrived alone. She looked poised, mid-30s to 40s, with short brown hair and an expression carved from calm. At the front desk, she gave a name, Mary A. Anderson. She paid in cash and listed a New York address, later proven fake. No ID was requested. No one thought twice. She was handed the key to room 214, and with a small smile, she disappeared behind the elevator doors. Room 214 was a standard suite. Nothing special, nothing strange. But over the next 2 days, something happened behind that closed door that no one heard, no one saw, and no one could later explain. Mary didn't order room service. She left the "Do Not Disturb" sign hanging the entire time. She never called the front desk, and no one saw her leave or return. The room remained eerily still. The only clue that someone was inside was the faint scent of citrus and antiseptic that drifted into the hallway when a passing maid paused, sensing something just slightly off. October 9th. Housekeeping knocked on the door of room 214, no answer. It had been over 48 hours since Mary had last been seen. Assuming she'd checked out and forgotten, the maid entered. What she found would burn into her mind forever. Mary lay on the bed, fully clothed in black slacks and a sweater, hands folded over her stomach like she was waiting for a priest. Her face was peaceful, no blood, no trauma, just stillness. A typed note rested on the bedside table. It was the kind of calm, final message that makes your skin crawl. To whom it may concern, I have decided to end my life and no one is responsible for my death. Mary Anderson, peace. I have no relatives. You can use my body as you choose. The autopsy revealed a shocking detail. Mary Anderson had died from ingesting a deadly cocktail of cyanide and Metamucil. Cyanide, a poison most commonly associated with spies and state assassins, had been swallowed in lethal amounts. But there was a problem. No container or delivery device was ever found in the room. No cup, no bottle, no pill capsules. It was as if the method of death had vanished, like a magic trick performed by death itself. Even the poison's presence was odd. Cyanide isn't easy to acquire. It's tightly regulated, rare, and dangerous to even handle. So how did a woman with no background, no traceable history, and no known identity manage to procure one of the deadliest substances on Earth? Seattle police ran her fingerprints. Nothing. The FBI ran them. Still nothing. Every item she brought into that room had been stripped of identifiers. No luggage tags, no clothing labels, no receipts or traceable items. Her purse contained just a tube of lipstick, a few dollars in cash, and a note. Even her handwriting was absent. Everything was typed. There was no way to tell who this woman really was. It's as if someone had gone through her life with a blade, cutting away every string that connected her to the world. Investigators were stunned. In a digital age where everyone leaves footprints, she left none. No social security number, no driver's license, no family to claim her. The name, Mary Anderson, was a mask, and behind it, only shadows. The autopsy was just as bizarre. Mary was in excellent health, well-nourished, no signs of trauma, and no indication of long-term illness. She was estimated to be in her late 30s to early 40s. Her nails were manicured, her hair neatly styled. She hadn't suffered. Death had come quickly after the poison was ingested, likely within minutes. But it wasn't just the poison or the false name that unnerved the coroner. It was how prepared she was. It's like she'd rehearsed this moment, not just planned it. She knew exactly what to do, what to bring, and how to leave behind a scene so clean, so composed, that it raised more questions than answers. Suicide is often messy, impulsive, or born of chaos. But this was ritual. This was vanishing on purpose. Public appeals went out. Sketches of her face were published. Her dental records were cross-checked. Nothing. No missing persons report matched her description. No family came forward. Genealogical DNA testing decades later turned up nothing. In the age of digital fingerprints and online footprints, this woman was a ghost. Investigators began to float theories. Was she an operative from a foreign agency? A criminal in hiding? A wealthy woman fleeing an abusive past? Or perhaps something stranger, a cult defector, a person who believed in complete erasure as a form of spiritual release? Theories piled up, but none fit all the facts. She had no past, no people, and no country. Just a death in a room on the 9th of October. After the body was removed, room 214 was cleaned, sanitized, and rebooked like nothing had happened. But guests who stayed in that room in the years that followed reported something strange, a heavy feeling, a sense of being watched, or dreams of a woman sitting on the edge of the bed, staring forward with an unreadable expression. One guest swore the air was always cold in that room, even with the heater on. Another said they awoke to the smell of bitter almonds, the scent of cyanide. Whether it was psychological suggestion or something else, room 214 never quite returned to normal. It became an unspoken secret among staff. Something you didn't talk about, but always felt. What makes Mary Anderson's case so chilling isn't just the death, it's the intentional disappearance. Most haunted tales begin with a tragedy. This one begins with a decision to walk into a hotel room, leave behind a fake name, ingest poison, and vanish from the world so completely that not even death could reveal her. She didn't want to be found. She didn't want to be mourned. And maybe that's what makes her story so terrifying. Not that she was lost, but that she chose to disappear methodically, like a ghost who never had a name to begin with. What did Mary do in the hours before her death? There are no cameras in the hallways of the Hotel Vintage Park. Not in 1996. No surveillance of the lobby. No trail through the streets. All we know is that after checking in on October 7th, she never left the building. Not once. Housekeeping noticed the "Do Not Disturb" sign remained on the handle every day. Staff didn't see her at breakfast, nor in the lounge, nor anywhere else on the premises. Guests staying on the same floor didn't hear a thing, no footsteps, no TV, no signs of life, just silence. It was as though room 214 had been sealed, not just physically, but spiritually, as though nothing passed in or out once that door clicked shut. Cyanide, the very word, evokes fear. Fast-acting, deadly, and almost cinematic in its reputation. It's been used in spy dramas, wartime suicide pacts, and government executions. But in reality, it's rarely used by civilians. It's not something you buy at the corner store or find online without setting off a dozen red flags. And here's the eerie part. When police scoured room 214, they couldn't find a container, a vial, a capsule, nothing. No glass with residue, no spilled powder, no package that once held a poison so potent it could kill within seconds. Toxicologists found cyanide mixed with Metamucil in her stomach. Why the fiber supplement? Was it to disguise the taste, slow the absorption? Or was it part of some arcane method learned from a wife we'll never know about. The hotel staff were asked, did she leave to buy anything? Did she have luggage? Yes, she had a medium-sized black leather bag. But here's the strange thing. There was no receipt, no new items, and no trash from food or shopping. No room service, no meal containers, no evidence she ever ate during her stay. The only item of note was her Bible. Yes, she brought a Bible, but even that bore no markings, no name inside, no underlined verses. Nothing to identify her spiritually, emotionally, or personally. The investigators later discovered something else. All the clothing tags had been removed, even from the inside lining of her coat. It wasn't just that she wanted to die. She wanted to die as no one. She had erased herself with surgical precision. The suicide note is brief, cold, typed on plain white paper. It says she has no relatives, no one is responsible, and her body may be used as needed. But think about that. You can use my body as you choose, not bury me or donate me. Use me. It's a statement with clinical detachment, like she was signing over a piece of property, almost dehumanized. Some theorists believe the note wasn't meant for the living, but for the dead. For something else, a pact, a bargain, an offering. Is it possible that Mary believed in a higher, darker force? One that required her complete anonymity, even after death? The wording is too precise. Too devoid of emotion, suicide notes often contain sadness. Despair farewells, this one, just instructions. It was written like an exit protocol. Believe it or not, Mary Anderson's case isn't alone in its eeriness. In Norway in 1970, a woman using the name Jennifer Furgate checked into Oslo's Plaza Hotel. She was found dead from a gunshot wound to the head, no ID, fake name, and all labels removed from her clothing, no fingerprints in any global system. Another Jane Doe, another room, another silent exit. A year before Mary's death, in 1995, a woman named Lyle Stovick checked into a motel in Washington state and committed suicide in eerily similar fashion cash only, fake ID, and no traceable information. These aren't isolated tragedies. They're a pattern of people choosing to disappear, leaving only controlled clues and cryptic deaths behind. Some believe it's a network. Others whisper about cults or intelligence programs. But the similarities are undeniable and disturbing. The CIA and FBI were both consulted after Mary's death. Her use of cyanide drew immediate attention from intelligence circles. Why? Because cyanide is the traditional suicide agent for captured spies. It's fast, clean, and, if taken correctly, irreversible. During the Cold War, agents carried cyanide capsules hidden in teeth or pens. Mary's method of ingestion, metamucil powder laced with cyanide, was unusual, but not implausible for someone trained to improvise. Some speculate she may have been an unofficial intelligence asset, someone who'd been cut loose, left in hiding, or forced into silence. But there's one chilling detail that keeps that theory alive. Her fingerprints were not in the system, anywhere. If she had worked for an agency, her prints would have existed, but what if they were deliberately wiped? Another theory lies in the eerie calm and total erasure, cult escapee. Some groups, especially in the late 80s and 90s, practiced total identity stripping. No names, no attachments, no past. Some even rehearsed suicide rituals as a form of spiritual graduation. Mary's detachment in her note, her ritualistic room preparation, and her utter elimination of personal identifiers make some believe she was part of such a group, and her suicide wasn't escape, but fulfillment, the final act of devotion. But again, there's no symbol, no calling card, no message. If it was a cult, it was one that didn't seek attention, only vanishment. As the years passed, room 214 began to gather its own kind of legend. Staff wouldn't talk about it openly, but some former employees, off the record, mentioned the strange atmosphere. Electronics that flickered, lights that refused to stay off. One maid claimed she walked into the room one afternoon while it was unoccupied and found the Bible open, something she swore she hadn't touched. It was open to Ecclesiastes 4:2-3, and I declared that the dead who had already died are happier than the living. But better than both is the one who has never been born. Coincidence? Maybe, but she said she left the room and refused to clean it again. Years later, an artist working with forensic data created a post-mortem rendering of Mary Anderson's face based on her autopsy and hotel surveillance. It was released to the public in the hope someone would recognize her. But instead of clarity, the image brought a different reaction: fear. Viewers online described her expression as too calm, too empty, and inhuman. Some even said her face seemed to change when looked at two long eyes that deepened, a mouth that seemed on the verge of speaking. Whether digital illusion or psychological projection, that image became a symbol of the unknowable. People weren't just scared of what happened. They were scared of how intentional it all felt. If this was a crime, it was committed in the softest whisper. No struggle, no weapon, just a presence that vanished on cue. If Mary Anderson was murdered, then it was the perfect murder. If she killed herself, it was the most precise suicide in modern memory. And if it was neither, if it was something else entirely, then it remains a chilling reminder that the world holds corners we still don't understand, corners where people can disappear, where names mean nothing, where death can be delivered in silence and ghosts don't rattle chains, they type notes. After Mary Anderson's body was removed from room 214, the hotel returned to business as usual, or tried to. The front desk quietly updated the booking records. Room 214 was taken off the list for maintenance reasons. But behind closed doors, staff whispered. Housekeeping refused to enter without a second person. Guests occasionally reported cold spots or feelings of unease without knowing why. One woman, staying in the room directly across the hall, left in the middle of the night. When asked why, she simply said, "Something kept walking by my door, but I never heard footsteps." For Detective Richard Harrington, the case never ended. Though officially unsolved, he kept Mary's file on his desk for over a decade. Her face, preserved in postmortem sketches and a handful of photographs, haunted him. In interviews years later, he confessed something strange. It's not just that we couldn't find out who she was. It's like she didn't exist on Earth. He wasn't alone. Two of the original investigators later described recurrent dreams, always of room 214, always of a woman standing near the bed, eyes closed, hands folded. Not violent dreams, just oppressive, heavy, like Mary was still waiting for someone to understand what she did. Or worse, join her. As the internet grew, so did the mystery. Mary Anderson's story became a favorite among true crime forums and early Reddit boards. Some users swore they recognized her. Others dug deep into missing persons archives from the 80s and 90s. One lead claimed she looked like a missing German tourist. Another claimed she matched a woman last seen at a Canadian airport in 1995. But every promising lead ended the same way: dead end. DNA testing was offered, but with no relatives on record, there was nothing to match it against. Mary remained frozen in time. Not a person. Not a memory. Just a riddle. Around 2014, an anonymous post on a now-defunct forum caught fire. The user claimed to have worked as a lab assistant in Seattle in the 90s and remembered an unusual case involving a body with an ID tag labeled Mary Anderson, but with internal scarring consistent with elective organ removal. They claimed the coroner's notes were altered and files were destroyed. The post disappeared within hours. Later, a user posted images of an old journal allegedly found in a thrift store in Spokane. One page read, "To vanish completely, you must first sever language. Let the mind empty, Let the Body Obey. The page was dated October 6, 1996, one day before Mary checked in. By 2020, Mary's case had entered a new kind of legend, the digital ghost story. YouTubers, bloggers, and TikTok creators began to use her image as a metaphor for vanishment. Some claimed if you stared at the artist's reconstruction long enough, it would blink. Others uploaded soundscapes taken from room 214 loops of hotel hallway ambience layered with static, coded whispering, and soft knocks. A few even claimed to have stayed in the actual room before it was permanently closed. One user described hearing typing on a keyboard at exactly 2:37 a.m., but the room didn't have a desk or a computer. Beyond crime and espionage, a stranger theory emerged, one that painted Mary not as a victim, but as a participant in a spiritual ritual. The total identity erasure, the use of cyanide, the sterile mount, the lack of personal effects. It resembled certain esoteric doctrines that speak of transcending identity to become part of something larger. One blog called it the ritual of the silent star. According to the theory, Mary's death was not just a suicide, but a metaphysical act, a sacrifice meant to exit reality itself. Of course, there's no proof. But there's no proof of who she was either. The very blankness of her life becomes a kind of shape and outline of something unnatural. Mary's suicide note had only a few sentences, but one linguist on Reddit analyzed the phrasing and syntax and suggested that it might be hiding a cipher. Certain words, no relatives, no one is responsible, and body may be used, repeat in strange cadence like a verbal pattern. Could it be a code? Attempts to decrypt the message using basic substitution ciphers failed, but some claimed that the entire note was not meant to be read by humans. Rather, it followed the same structural patterns found in predictive machine code, as if it were a command line for something not quite biological. In 2018, a local Seattle journalist received a voicemail from a woman with no caller ID. The message was short. You're looking for Mary. You won't find her. She was never Mary. When asked if the voice could be traced, phone records came up blank. The number didn't exist. 2 weeks later, an envelope arrived at the journalist's office. Inside was a single photo, grainy, aged, possibly from the 1980s. It showed a woman in a red coat standing near a lake. She looked like Mary Anderson. But on the back of the photo was a line typed in all caps. This is the body she chose to use. By the late 2010s, Mary's death had become part of Seattle's underground dark tourism circuit. Tourists requested to stay on the same floor. Paranormal podcasts recorded episodes from the lobby of Hotel Vintage Park. Some even tried to recreate the last meal, the water, and Metamucil laced with safe substitutes. But not all were harmless thrill seekers. In 2021, a man claiming to be Mary's spiritual successor tried to check into the hotel under her name and later attempted self-harm in a nearby alley. Police found him holding a notebook filled with drawings, eyes, doors, symbols. One sketch stood out, a woman lying on a hotel bed, surrounded by a circle of salt. Mary Anderson is buried in an unmarked grave at Seattle's Evergreen Shelley Cemetery. There is no headstone, no plaque, just a record. Jane Doe 1996, 1996, but even that came under scrutiny. In 2022, a conspiracy subreddit claimed that the records for that plot had been sealed without explanation. A FOIA request was denied due to privacy concerns. For a woman with no known family, no identity, and no criminal record, that level of protection seemed excessive, almost as if someone did know who she was and didn't want the rest of us to find out. You might ask, why does this case disturb people so deeply? It's not just the mystery, not just the death. It's the sense that someone chose to vanish so completely, so flawlessly, that not even time could reclaim her. Mary Anderson didn't just end her life, She ended her existence, and yet we remember her, which means she failed. Or maybe she wanted to be remembered by the right people. And if you're hearing this story now, maybe that means you were meant to. Mary Anderson's mystery is rare, but not unique. Across the world, there have been other cases, people who checked into hotels under false names, left behind no fingerprints, no identification, and never came back. In 2009, the Isdal woman was found burned in Norway's Isdalen Valley, also with fake identities, coded notes, and mysterious travel records. In 2010, the Tamam Shud man, discovered dead on Somerton Beach in Australia, had no ID, an untraceable suitcase, and a scrap of cryptic Persian poetry in his pocket. And like Mary, no one knows who they were. These aren't coincidences. They're patterns. Let's return to room 214. After Mary's death, the hotel tried to quietly sanitize it, fresh coat of paint, new carpet, replacement bed, but some items remained. Sealed in evidence, stored somewhere in the Seattle Police Department's long-term cold storage. We know this much. A Gideon Bible on the desk was open to Psalm 23. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. The cup she drank from was rinsed carefully before being placed beside the sink. The television remote had one oddity. Its batteries were missing, and the room's window lock had been unscrewed, then replaced backward. Why? No one knows. She didn't jump. She was already dead. But someone made sure that window could be opened again from the outside. For years, only one postmortem sketch of Mary was publicly available. It showed her face in a peaceful expression. But in 2019, an image surfaced on an encrypted file-sharing site. It appeared to be an unedited photo from the original morgue intake. Mary's face was the same, but there was one difference. Her eyes were slightly open. Users who examined the image reported a strange optical effect. When stared at for too long, the pupils seemed to dilate. Others claimed that the background of the photo, once bright and sterile, began to darken as they looked. The file was quickly deleted, and the user who uploaded it, account deleted. IP traced to Walla Walla Penitentiary, where no such inmate ever existed. In 2023, an anonymous former employee of the Hotel Vintage Park finally spoke to a podcaster. They had been working the front desk the night Mary checked in. She remembered something odd. She didn't walk in from the street. She came from the elevator. But no one saw her enter the building. She asked for a room with a window facing a specific church spire across the street. When the clerk asked why, she replied, "Because that's where I'll see the first light." And then she added, "I'll be gone before it matters." The clerk said her voice was monotone, but not robotic, more like someone who had practiced the same lines again and again until they didn't sound human anymore. Yes, the hotel had security cameras. But here's the problem. The footage for that week? Missing. It was supposed to be stored digitally. But the server logs show a forced reboot on October 11th, 1996, the morning her body was discovered. The timestamp was corrupted, the footage wiped, no backup, no physical tapes. Investigators suspected it was just old software. But one IT consultant said something chilling. That reboot wasn't accidental. It was a manual override. Someone deleted her. In 2004, a Seattle Times editor reportedly received a handwritten letter. It read, "Please stop looking. I was never meant to be remembered. My silence was the gift. What you call mystery, I call mercy." The letter had no return address. The envelope had no postmark, and the handwriting, when compared to Mary Anderson's suicide note, was a perfect match. But here's the catch. The paper used for the letter was discontinued in 1998, and no prints were found. Not even the editors. After multiple podcasts and video essays about Mary's case went viral, something strange began to happen. Listeners began reporting similar dreams. A room with green wallpaper and a single bed, A woman sitting on the edge, facing away. A Bible on the desk and a glass of water with something swirling in it. A knock at the door that never ends. They all described waking up with a strong urge to look in their mirror. And a name on their lips, Mary. A psychologist who tracked this phenomenon dubbed it shared auditory subconscious imprinting, but even he admitted it's like something got inside them through the story itself. Sometime between 2022 and 2023, room 214 at the Hotel Vintage Park was permanently renamed. The number was removed, the door repainted. If you try to book that room today, you'll be told it's under renovation perpetually. But a leaked floor plan showed the truth. Room 214 doesn't exist anymore. Its space was quietly merged into the neighboring utility closet. A staff member confirmed it was done for peace of mind. But he said something odd as he left the interview. We didn't close the room because of what happened. We closed it because of what started happening after. One fringe theory suggests Mary Anderson may not have been her final alias. When authorities searched handwriting databases, they found a close match to a Canadian woman named Anne Dumont, who disappeared in 1993 after attending a seminar on conscious unmanifestation, a now-defunct cult that taught methods for leaving physical space. Anne had no family, no job, and left behind only a note. The body is done, the self dissolves. She was never found, but the similarities are unnerving, especially when you compare photos. Anne Dumont looks like Mary Anderson age adjusted by exactly 3 years. If you're still watching, still listening, still haunted by the face of a woman the world erased, you're not alone. People like Mary Anderson don't disappear randomly. They vanish for a reason. And when someone goes to such great lengths to be forgotten, we have to ask, what exactly did they leave behind? Because sometimes the emptiest rooms echo the loudest, and the blankest faces are the ones the dark remembers best. We've talked about aliases, cults, codes, and espionage, but there's one theory that even the most fringe researchers hesitate to explore. It isn't grounded in science or psychology. It's rooted in fear. What if Mary Anderson wasn't just hiding from people? What if she was hiding from something else? In 2007, a private investigator in Oregon compiled what he called the Outsider Files, a collection of cases dating back to the 1960s. Each case featured a person with no verifiable history who appeared suddenly in public record, lived briefly under a false identity, and then died by suicide in a ritualized or symbolic way. The files note identical phrases across multiple notes. No relatives. No one is responsible. The body may be used as needed. Sound familiar? The file claims these people weren't victims. They were vessels. One fringe researcher, Dr. Alan Greaves, suggested something called a spiritual implant phenomenon. The theory? That certain people are occupied by non-human consciousnesses, entities that inhabit human vessels for brief periods. Their goal is unclear. Observation, surveillance, experimentation, but eventually, the host body is emptied. The entity departs. The vessel ends itself. In this theory, the cyanide in Mary's stomach wasn't an act of pain or despair. It was simply a shutdown command, like powering off a machine that had completed its task. An anonymous tip in 2015 came from someone claiming to have interned at the King County Medical Examiner's Office in 1996. They said the initial autopsy on Mary Anderson noted something very strange, then redacted it in the final report. Inside her stomach lining, they found a small metallic object, about the size of a grain of rice, smooth, seamless, not swallowed, embedded. When scanned, it emitted a soft clicking noise like a metronome. But by the time specialists arrived, the object had vanished. The examiner dismissed it as a labeling artifact, but the intern never forgot the sound. Click, click, click. Over the decades, A handful of guests who stayed on the same floor as room 214 reported unsettling events. One guest, a sound technician from Vancouver, awoke at 3:09 a.m. to find his TV already on displaying only static. The volume slowly rose, then dropped. When he turned it off, the screen stayed illuminated, showing what he swears was a woman sitting on a hotel bed, staring at him. Another man claimed his keycard was deactivated every night between 2 and 3 a.m., always requiring replacement. He later told a paranormal blog, "It was like the room didn't want me to leave, like someone inside needed me to stay." In 2019, a thread appeared on an obscure darknet forum titled, "I was her handler, ask me anything." The poster claimed to have been involved in the creation of Mary Anderson as a soft-shell identity, a term used in intelligence circles for artificial people created to monitor, distract, or test public surveillance systems. He claimed Mary was never meant to die, only to disappear again. When asked what went wrong, the reply was chilling. She saw something, she remembered, then the thread was locked, and the site itself taken down permanently 3 days later. No backups, no archive, nothing left but screenshots and speculation. In 2023, a local journalist managed to acquire a sealed court file related to an unidentified deceased female from 1996. Inside was a photo of a drawing, supposedly found under the mattress of room 214 after Mary's body was removed. The drawing showed a door surrounded by eyes. Some were closed, some were weeping, and one in the center was open bleeding light. Next to the image were 3 words, scrawled in shaky handwriting: "It watches back." But the most disturbing part? The paper wasn't hotel stationery. It was a page torn from her suicide note. Let's entertain the impossible. Let's say Mary Anderson was not a ghost, a spy, or a cultist. Let's say she was something, or someone, pretending to be human. And whatever she was running from, whether it was otherworldly, spiritual, technological, or entirely unknown, finally caught up to her. The real question is not, who is Mary Anderson? The real question is, how many more like her are out there? How many blank faces, clean aliases, perfect hotel rooms have already come and gone without us noticing? In 2024, a tech-savvy TikTok user ran Mary's suicide note through a language processing AI, not to decode it, but to interpret its emotional fingerprint. The result was an eerie text string generated by the machine, claiming it had received a secondary instruction buried in the tone. The string said, "End signal received. Phase 1 complete. Await silence." What phase? What signal? It was nonsense, wasn't it? Mary Anderson checked into a room that no longer exists, under a name that never belonged to her, carrying secrets we may never understand. No family, no friends, not even a past, but somehow her story survived, not because she wanted it to, but because something in that room didn't let it die. And now you know. You've heard her name, you've seen her face. And maybe tonight, when the room is quiet and the lights flicker just once, you'll hear that soft, cold knock on your door. If you've stayed with us through this journey, thank you. The story is real. The death of Mary Anderson remains unsolved to this day, but maybe it was never meant to be solved. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want more true horror like this. And whatever you do, don't open the door at 3:09 a.m.